CEO discovers hidden letter in late wife's book, uncovers exciting transformation of a single mom. Jake Anderson stared blankly at the tattered spine of Emily's favorite novel, its faded cover whispering memories he longed to escape. Grieving punctuated his every breath, a relentless weight that threatened to suffocate the remnants of joy he'd once known. After losing Emily just months ago, every day morphed into a blur of meetings and responsibilities, surely a continuation of a life on autopilot. Sorting through her cherished clutter felt like an intrusion, yet he had no choice. He needed to confront a world steeped in the rich aroma of her presence, the laughter, the late-night musings, every simple joy that now felt foreign. When the letter slipped from the pages, it fluttered like a wounded bird to the ground. Jake's heart quickened as he unfolded it, his breath caught in his throat. Emily's dreams spilled out like ink on paper, her yearning to be an art teacher, to inspire kids in the same small town that had raised her. Instead, she'd become the wife of a successful CEO, overshadowed by ambition, buried beneath the polished facade of success. Visions of Mia Rodriguez, the single mother next door, danced in his mind. He remembered her attempting to make a canvas sing while juggling responsibilities like a circus performer, wishes for her own artistry tucked away under the immense weight of survival. Here lay his first moral dilemma. Should he break free from the shackles of his own ambition and risk everything to help Mia reach for the stars in honor of Emily? The thought made his palms sweat. Could he truly put his influence to use for someone who had never tasted his kind of success? If they truly emerged victorious together, what would that mean for him? Ambivalence gnawed at his core. What if it was all in vain, a distraction from the raw wound he carried? Jake's thoughts spiraled, the ground beneath him feeling like ever-shifting sand. As he stumbled through meetings, each discussion seemed tinged with the hollowness of his ongoing grief. The thought of organizing a community art show, a legitimate platform for Mia's unvoiced talent, loomed like an impossible dream. His colleagues laughed it off and questioned whether he was serious. Business should remain in the boardroom, not spilled over to the canvas boards. Yet every rational argument invoked the face of Emily, her encouraging smile, enhancing his determination. The pressure built, and soon the shadows of doubt clouded the air around him, growing thicker. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as the thought of Mia's emerging potential ignited a flicker of light in the darkness, a phone call shattered his fragile resolve. Mia's voice trembled as she spoke of interest from a local gallery. Excitement buzzed through the line before morphing into fear. What if she didn't belong? Jake felt a visceral tightening in his chest. Was this the moment to push her into the limelight, or was he simply using her as a means to escape his own unbearable grief? With the weight of Emily's memory pulling him downward, Jake grappled with the notion of uncovering a troubling rumor, a secret about Emily's past that could rip apart the idealistic image he had of her. Should he confront this potential betrayal and risk losing everything she meant, or protect her memory while seeking redemption in helping Mia? As the community art fair approached, the air crackled with tension, each heartbeat echoing the unresolved turmoil that swirled in his mind. Standing at this crossroads, Jake couldn't tell if love would be the beacon guiding him through the storm, or the very thing that could extinguish their flickering hopes. Jake paced the length of his luxurious office, the soft hum of city life barely registering as he wrestled with the decision looming ominously in his mind. Each step echoed the clash between his overwhelming grief for Emily and the stirring resolve to honor her unfulfilled dreams. The gallery's upcoming exhibition loomed like an approaching storm, bringing with it a chaotic blend of fear and excitement. He glanced at the framed picture of Emily on his desk, her radiant smile frozen in time, a stark reminder of the aspirations he had overlooked in pursuit of corporate success. With the fragile hope of passing along Emily's dreams to Mia, a new dilemma emerged. Was it his right to take the lead in someone else's journey? Steering Mia towards her passion felt like a salvation for both their souls, yet doubt swirled within him like a tempest. Could he guide her without losing his own identity? Mia deserved to chart her own course, not become a reflection of his own redemption. In a moment of impulsive clarity, he called Mia, a mix of eagerness and fear racing through him as he proposed the art exhibition. "Think of this as a platform," he urged, his voice steady despite the uncertainty coursing through him. "A chance not just for you to display your work, but to inspire others grappling with their own dreams." Silence punctuated the call as he awaited her response, his heart drumming a relentless beat against the heavy weight of expectation. "What if I fail?" Mia's voice crackled through the line, the vulnerability sending a pang of sympathy through him. Failure loomed like a specter, unavoidable and haunting. He could hear Emily whispering in the background, reminding him that every great leap forward was preceded by uncertainty. "Mia, everyone feels that way. But what if you succeed? You have the talent, and I want to help you put it out into the world." A pause stretched between them, the silence thick with unspoken fears and unfulfilled dreams. "Okay," Mia finally replied, her determination mingling with hesitation. "I'll give it a shot." As he hung up the phone, adrenaline washed over him in waves. He could almost feel Emily's hand on his shoulder, urging him onward. This moment ignited a flicker of purpose within him, yet shadows of doubt crept back in. Was he merely projecting his own desperate need for connection onto her? What was the cost of his involvement? Helping Mia colored his vision with excitement, yet he couldn't ignore the gnawing whispers of guilt, an impending confrontation with the truth about Emily that he'd been staving off. Over the next few days, as the art show preparations unfolded, Jake pushed himself to confront the rumor he had stumbled upon. The need for clarity propelled him forward, even amidst the dread of what he might discover. He hoped to shield himself from the legacy of betrayal that might unravel everything he believed he knew about his wife. In meetings with his staff, he masked the turbulence brewing beneath the surface with a sharp focus, yet his thoughts were elsewhere. He caught glimpses of Mia through the office window, teaching her son to mix colors on the driveway canvas, as if the world could zip ahead as their own slice of life blossomed. The image sparked fierce determination, a reminder of the life he'd buried under layers of ambition. But just as clarity began to emerge, he received an unexpected visitor, Anna, Emily's closest friend. She strode into his office with purpose, her demeanor suggesting the weight of unspoken words. "Jake," she said, eyes ablaze with an urgency that made his stomach clench, "we need to talk about Emily." This was the moment he had feared, and yet the urgency was palpable. What hidden truths would she unveil? Each breath hung heavy in the air as the reality of facing his past collided with his desperate attempts at forging a future for Mia. In this pivotal confrontation, Jake's entire world teetered on the edge. Would the revelations transform his understanding of Emily, or would they shatter the fragile hope he'd begun to build with Mia? Jake's heart pounded in his chest as he studied Anna's expression, searching for any hints of what she might reveal. The air felt thick with the weight of unsaid words. It suffocated him, compelling him to lean in, desperate for understanding. "What do you mean?" he pressed, fighting to mask the tremor in his voice. Anna took a deep breath, her eyes glistening with emotion. "I found something," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Something that might change everything you think you know about Emily and what she aimed for." The words struck Jake like a cold wave. How could anything change the memories he'd built around the reality of life with Emily? Yet a desperate curiosity clawed at him. "What did you find?" he demanded, urgency sharpening his tone. She reached into her bag, producing a small leather-bound notebook, its corners frayed from years of being tucked away. Emily's journal. She wrote about her dreams, her regrets, and some things I think she never shared with you. Jake felt his breath hitch. The journal was a relic of the past he had been trying to navigate, now thrust into the forefront. Accepting it from Anna, his fingers brushed against the worn leather, igniting a sense of dread and nostalgia all at once. As he glanced at Anna, her eyes bore into him with a mix of compassion and apprehension. "Jake, I know this might be hard to hear, but I think she wanted you to understand more. She wrote about her struggles to balance her career with her art, the way she felt torn between being the perfect wife and the artist she longs to be. You need to see this." Jake felt his breath hitch. The journal was a relic of the past he had been trying to navigate, now thrust into the forefront. Accepting it from Anna, his fingers brushed against the worn leather, igniting a sense of dread and nostalgia all at once. As he glanced at Anna, her eyes bore into him with a mix of compassion and apprehension. "Jake, I know this might be hard to hear, but I think she wanted you to understand more. She wrote about her struggles to balance her career with her art, the way she felt torn between being the perfect wife and the artist she longed to be. You need to see this." An involuntary wave of guilt washed over him, thickening his resolve. He had buried his own truth, his own repressed ambitions alongside Emily's. Was he not just as guilty of overlooking her desires? He flipped open the notebook, the pages crackling under his fingers, his heart racing as he absorbed Emily's elegant penmanship. Each entry unveiled fragments of her aspirations, the dreams that had once died beneath the weight of reality. One particular passage caught his eye, poignant in its raw honesty. "I wish I could find my voice again. Jake is so driven, and I love him for that, but I feel I'm losing myself in his shadow." The realization hit him like a slap. He had never fully comprehended the depth of Emily's struggle, caught as he was in his pursuits, blind to the fracturing of her spirit. "What do I do with this?" he muttered, the realization thickening the air between them. "I think you need to share it with Mia," Anna suggested gently. "She deserves to know a fuller picture of her mother, the dreams Emily had that outlived her." Tension coiled tightly within Jake. How could he represent these aspirations to Mia when he was wrestling with his own sense of identity? Every ounce of resolve he had poured into steering Mia towards her art seemed to dangle precariously now, overshadowed by the specter of Emily's unfulfilled potential. Yet, as the weight of Anna's words settled in, Jake felt a simmering realization. Driving Mia's success was no longer about correlation to his own desires or regrets. It was about stepping into the space where Emily's dreams collided with those of the girl he hoped to help flourish. The jagged pieces of his past needed to be reshaped into steps for the future, crushing the cycles of guilt and regret. "I want to honor her," he said, his voice steadier now. "Not by making Mia or myself a reflection of her, but by letting us all move forward, together." Anna's nod was slow, affirming his resolve. As Jake contemplated the gravity of the upcoming conversation with Mia, a singular thought crept in. The path to healing would require revealing truths, not just about Emily's life, but about himself. But as he pondered the implications of sharing this discovery, a gnawing anxiety gripped him. How would Mia react to learning the depths of her mother's untold dreams? Would she embrace them or reject them? The potential for transformation loomed like a dawn on the horizon, yet shadows still darkened the terrain. Before he could fully process, a final question emerged in his mind, igniting a flicker of fear. What if Mia's creative journey was not the only one awaiting an awakening? The future felt precarious as he gathered his thoughts, preparing to face the crossroads that awaited, one that could redefine not only Mia's path, but his own as well. Would he be brave enough to confront the painful truths and leap into a new beginning? Jake stood in the dim light of the living room, the leather-bound journal heavy in his hands. It represented more than just Emily's words. It felt like a gateway to a different life, one that held answers to questions he had never dared to ask. The reality of his own ambitions weighed on him, a constant reminder of how he had chased success while Emily silently faltered. The implications of Anna's suggestion buried themselves deep in his mind. Mia needed to know the truths behind her mother's dreams, but revealing them would also mean a confrontation of his own failures. He could no longer just be the supportive dad pushing Mia towards her art. He had to embrace a larger role in their narrative, one that acknowledged the complexities and dreams of both women he loved. Jake had always devoted himself to painting a future for Mia that mimicked the aspirations he had once poured into his career. Yet Emily's journal sparked a realization that had been simmering beneath the surface. Perhaps he needed to step back and reevaluate what it meant to cultivate Mia's gifts. Could he reshape the context of her art, bringing it closer to Emily's own unexplored dreams? A thunderous knock jolted him from his thoughts, echoing in the silence of the house. He turned, recognizing the sound as Mia's eager footsteps sprinting toward the door. The vibrant girl sat at the edge of the couch, her usual enthusiasm illuminating the room as she returned home from school, clutching a folded paper in her hand. "Dad, you won't believe what we did in art class today!" Her voice bubbled with excitement, a sharp contrast to the turbulence within him. He forced a smile, trying to match her energy as he invited her to sit beside him. "I'm all ears. Show me what you made." With eyes sparkling, Mia unfolded the paper, revealing a riot of colors splashed together, an abstract representation of her day. "I think it's a flower, but not just any flower. It's every color I feel inside." Jake's heart softened at her unfiltered joy. The connection with her art was visceral, a reflection of her spirit. It hit him that art wasn't just a skill to be pursued, it was her voice, her way of navigating the world. Just like Emily had sought her own voice in her own art. As she rambled on about her inspirations, Jake felt a pang of guilt for what he had yet to disclose about Emily. How could he connect Mia's present passion to her mother's struggles? Would she understand the weight of Emily's untold dreams? "Can I show you something too?" Jake asked, his voice betraying a lump of uncertainty. He gestured toward the journal, feeling a premonition wash over him. This wasn't just about Emily anymore. This was about finding a new way to connect with Mia. Mia closed her eyes, nodding eagerly. Curiosity sparked as he handed her the journal, a cascade of emotions flashing across her face as she took it. "What's this?" "It's a part of your mom," he began, hesitating as he searched for the right words. He watched her open it, those bright eyes shifting from wonder to contemplation. As Mia leafed through the pages, Jake held his breath. The journey they were about to embark on was daunting. The fear of rejection mixed with the hope that they might uncover a deeper bond, intertwined through art and dreams. "What if I'm not good enough?" he heard her voice crack, breaking the silence. "What if I can't do what Mom never got to?" Jake felt a surge of determination as he leaned closer. "That's the beauty of it, Mia. You don't have to replicate what she wanted. What you create is your own journey. It's about you finding your voice, just like she was trying to do." Mia stared at him, uncertainty still coloring her expression, but also an inkling of understanding blossoming. In that moment, Jake recognized that he was not just guiding her, he was navigating his own path toward healing as well. As they waded deeper into the ocean of Emily's dreams, he felt the current of his own aspirations rising too. But as Mia continued to study the pages, an unsettling thought loomed in the back of Jake's mind. Was he prepared to embrace the legacy of dreams that didn't quite align with his own ambitions? Would his own creative awakening clash with the unspoken expectations he had set? The journey ahead felt laden with potential, yet the shadows of doubt loomed larger with every tick of the clock. Jake's grip tightened on the journal as he mentally braced himself for what could unfold. Would this shared discovery propel them forward, or send them spiraling into conflicts he couldn't foresee? With a deep breath, he caught Mia's eye, feeling the weight of their uncharted territory. The moment to share was now, but so were the stakes. Could he navigate this blending of legacies without losing himself in the process? And as they sat, poised on the cusp of revelation, the ripple effects of their conversation began to surface. What awaited them in the pages of Emily's dreams? Would they uncover hidden truths that transform their lives in unexpected ways? As Mia turned the delicate pages, her fingers brushing lightly over Emily's handwriting, Jake felt the weight of anticipation pressing down on him. Each word belonged to a past he had always skirted around, weaving through the fabric of today. The journal, seemingly just ink and paper, had morphed into a mirror reflecting both their fears and potential. "Look here!" Mia suddenly exclaimed, her eyes growing wide as she pointed to a particular page bursting with vibrant sketches and half-formed thoughts. "What does this mean?" Jake leaned in, scrutinizing the passage. Emily had been contemplating an exhibit dedicated to the emotions that colored her everyday life. An exploration of joy, sadness, hope, and despair through visual art. It had never materialized, but the drawings pulsated with raw emotion, echoing her silent struggles. Jake's chest tightened. Part of him wanted to protect Mia from the complexity of her mother's pain. Yet this was also a reminder that authenticity lay entwined with vulnerability. "Your mom saw life in a way that was unique," he began, searching for a bridge to connect Emily's dreams with Mia's current aspirations. "She wanted to show that art isn't just beauty, it's about feeling. Maybe you can explore that too." Mia's expression shifted. The initial excitement dimmed, revealing a flicker of fear. "But what if people don't see it like I do? What if they think I'm not good enough? What if it's too much?" Jake felt a sudden chill, understanding well the shadows of doubt that could cloud an artist, especially one so closely tied to a legacy of unfulfilled dreams. This could become a catalyst for Mia, but it could also be a point of fracture in their relationship if mishandled. "Let's redefine good enough," he suggested, gently leaning closer. "What if you showed them your truth, your colors, just like she did?" Mia's eyes darted from the journal's pages to her father's face. Somewhere deep inside, she was processing the gravity of his words. Could she allow herself the freedom to express her emotions on canvas, however chaotic or incomplete? "Dad," she whispered, uncertainty lacing her voice, "what if this all becomes too heavy?" The truth resonated like a struck chord within Jake. Heavy wasn't a weight to discard. It was a part of the journey they were undertaking together. He realized this journey, both through Emily's artistry and Mia's burgeoning creativity, required him to release the burdens he had long held inside. "It might feel heavy at first, but that's what we're here to figure out together," he reassured her. "If it ever gets too intense, we'll talk it out. Just remember, it's okay to feel. Every brushstroke reflects that heart." Gradually, Mia nodded, absorbing his encouragement. Jake sensed a shift, a newfound responsibility resting on his shoulders as he became not only her guide, but an active participant in confronting the legacy of love and dreams that Emily had left behind. As the sun dipped lower, casting golden light through the living room, Jake grasped the fact that they were not merely digging up Emily's past, they were also illuminating their own. Together, they could navigate the emerging narrative of triumph over loss and uncertainty. The moment settled uneasily, a blend of revelation and uncertainty hanging in the air. They flipped through more pages, each revealing bits of Emily that stirred memories and aspirations. But with each discovery, Jake knew that they needed a concrete plan, a way to channel this newfound connection into something tangible. "Mia, what if we used your mom's journal as a source of inspiration?" he proposed, a flicker of excitement ignited. "What if we created art together? We can explore these themes she touched upon and make them our own." Her eyes gleamed with possibilities as they both started dreaming up collaborations. But Jake couldn't shake the gnawing sensation that with each passing moment he was stepping further into a minefield of his own emotions and aspirations. Was he prepared for the outcome of this artistic exploration? Would their work together bring them closer, or would it unravel threads he struggled to keep woven tightly together? As they dove deep into the pages again, their conversation becoming a whirlwind of ideas, the reality loomed ahead. The stakes were higher than mere creativity. They were unearthing a transformative force that would reshape their identities. What awaited them at the intersection of their artistic journeys? Would they emerge victorious or fall victim to the shadows of the past? The following days unfurled like an artist's canvas, blank yet tinged with possibility, as Mia and Jake devoted themselves to the process of creation. Hidden within the musty pages of Emily's journal, they sifted through her emotions, exploring every crayon-drawn heart and inkling of a dream. Each artistic endeavor became a shared ritual, often punctuated by laughter, but equally drenched in unspoken anxieties. Jake, however, battled his own specter of doubt. Art had never been his world, but he found himself drawn deeper into Mia's exploration as if it were a lifeline. He dared to pick up a brush, feeling the unfamiliar texture of paint glide across canvas. Each stroke resonated with Emily's legacy but echoed back his own vulnerabilities. The realization that he was carving new pathways in their lives away from the shadows cast by grief. "What if we framed the emotions your mom wrote about as a story?" Mia posed one afternoon, voice brimming with excitement. She was gaining momentum, confidence that seemed to radiate from her fingertips. "We could create something visually and narratively compelling." Jake paused. It seemed simple enough, but woven within the suggestion was the uncharted territory they were preparing to traverse. The juxtaposition of their pain with the very emotions they were now trying to convert into art held a mirrored reflection of acceptance and fear. "Are we ready to tell that story?" he asked softly, pressing the brush against the canvas, feeling its weight like a question posed only to him. Mia shrugged, contemplating. "We won't know until we try, right?" The tenacity in her voice served as a reminder of the promise lingering between them, not just to honor Emily, but to unearth aspects of themselves left dormant. Their collaborative sessions turned therapeutic. Mia's sketches gracefully morphed into vibrancy, while Jake surprised himself with abstract shapes that reflected his internal struggles. The language they employed points to a synthesis of healing, a transformative process he hadn't anticipated. Yet amid this blossoming realization, a question continually festered. Would the journey be therapeutic, or would it sharpen the wounds? Weeks passed, and as their art began to fill the walls of the living room, Jake found himself grappling with a growing sense of obligation. They weren't just creating, they were also uncovering hidden narratives about themselves beneath layers of silence. He began to view these sessions as not just artistic expression, but as confessions that threatened to unearth long-buried truths. One evening, as they sat among their burgeoning collection, Mia flipped her mother's journal open again. There was a tinge of awe in her voice as she read her mother's thoughts on vulnerability alongside a tender sketch of herself at a younger age. "Do you ever think she felt like this? Unsure about what lay ahead?" she asked, her gaze steady. Jake felt as if the air had thickened, and he couldn't ignore the lump forming in his throat. "I think she did," he managed, "but she kept trying. That's important." His words hung in the atmosphere, a bridge over fear and uncertainty. Jake realized he was not solely Mia's mentor in this venture. He was confronting his own legacy of apprehensions and regrets. Here they were, breathing life into Emily's essence, but along with it came the urge to evolve beyond the identities they had clung to for so long. As the night thickened, enveloping them, a stillness settled. Surrounded by canvases portraying raw emotions, Jake felt the weight of his own silence. The fear of the past haunted him, but there was a flicker of hope amid the uncertainty, a chance to transcend the weight of loss through candid expression. What would happen when they finally unveiled their creation to the world? Would it all culminate in catharsis, or would it spiral into chaos, exposing the cracks that had formed beneath the surface? Jake sensed an impending reckoning, a convergence of truth and vulnerability he could no longer ignore. The moment approached. He needed to tackle the doubts festering within him before they crystallized into something unmanageable. Inwardly, he contemplated whether he could truly revisit the delicate balance of fatherhood and artistry without succumbing to the fears that crept in silently. The question lingered like paint on his fingertips, and he concluded that their work was just beginning. Would their art empower them, or would it rip them apart at the seams they'd just begun to weave? As dawn seeped into the room, Jake found himself unsettled. The vivid canvases surrounding him felt like fragments of a dream half-remembered, ambitious and daunting. He was tethered to that artistic endeavor alongside Mia, but the fear of exposure held him back. The walls echoed not just colors, but uncharted grievances that whispered at the edges of his consciousness. Mia, buoyed by determination, observed him with perceptive eyes. "You're holding back," she said one morning, her voice cutting through the silence of contemplation. She was correct. He was constricting his honesty within the strokes of paint and the thickness of his thoughts. Yet the vulnerability of pouring herself into their artwork didn't seem to faze her. Instead, it invigorated her. "Maybe," Jake admitted, clearing his throat, "but it's overwhelming, you know? What if we're not ready to expose those depths?" "Does it matter if we're ready?" Mia countered, her tone unwavering. "Isn't that why we're doing this? To confront what we're scared of?" He turned away, his gaze landing on a sketch of a turbulent sea she had created. It was both chaotic and majestic, a reflection of his internal storm. The power of expression surged within her, and he was left grappling with the implications of their shared art. Who would they be when the facade fell away? An uncomfortable silence followed, heavy with the unspooled threads of potential. Jake resisted the urge to retreat to familiar ground, where control offered comfort. Instead, he lingered on the precipice, eyes flicking back to the canvas. The emerging colors beckoned him, a call for authenticity that both thrilled and terrified him. Days turned into nights filled with relentless creation. Each piece began to encapsulate fragments of Emily, but they also captured Jake's burgeoning resolve. He spent hours staring at the paintings, tracing the contours with cautious fingers, as though to better understand the timidity coiling in his gut. He needed to confront his deepest fears, a reckoning with grief that warred with the fragile hope growing within him. If he remained imprisoned by the past, their artistic endeavor would reflect only despair. One rainy afternoon, compelled by a surge of courage, Jake set up a canvas distinct from their past pieces, one where he would depict his own experience of loss. The moment he began, a rush of emotion washed over him. In quiet moments, he would find himself staring blankly at the many unfinished pieces scattered throughout the studio. The chaotic beauty of Mia's work was both inspiring and daunting. She seemed to tap into a well of fearlessness that he struggled to access. It was disorienting to witness her unfettered expression, illuminating the breadth of his own hesitation. It pricked at him, a call to reconcile the pain he cloaked beneath his art. One late night, urges stronger than doubt pushed Jake to re-examine one particular piece. It was a canvas that remained predominantly untouched, a physical representation of the internal battles he waged between grief and creation. As he stood before it, the brush hung suspended in the air. He felt a storm forming within him, an urgency to let go and allow what had been dormant to spill onto the canvas. Though he had grown accustomed to the pangs of vulnerability, this was different. An anxiety surged as he battled the question of whether the emotions behind this artwork would resonate with anyone else. Was he simply pouring out his soul for nothing? Or, perhaps worse, would he expose himself to ridicule for not being able to articulate his pain? With resolve hardening in his chest, he plunged into the piece. Memories of Emily melded with his fears. Disruptive flashes of their past intertwined with aspirations for his future. As colors splashed across the canvas, each stroke felt liberating, stripping away remnants of self-doubt. Yet even this release ignited more questions than answers. What did their collaboration mean if he couldn't confront his own demons? If his brush could unleash such chaos, would it also curve toward clarity? What if, in the process of sharing his truth, the connection they had forged began to fray rather than solidify? Mia entered the studio, interrupting his spiral of thoughts. She paused, eyes fixed on the canvas that pulsed with Jake's still-forming ideas, a frantic tempest of vibrancy, shadow, and light. "This one is different," she remarked, the rejuvenation in her tone undeniable. It's my attempt to finally cope, to truly face it," he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't want to be the only storyteller here. I want our experiences to blend, to resonate with others. If I fail to connect, it feels futile." Mia stepped closer, her gaze unwavering yet warm. "It's already a connection, Jake. Sharing our vulnerabilities is the point. Just like this canvas, your story holds worth. Even if it feels like chaos now, it doesn't negate its beauty." Her words danced around the insecurities shackled to his heart. Doubt threatened to cloud his emerging strength, but there was something about her acknowledgement that staved off the urge to retreat. Could she be right? Compelled by both admiration for her and turmoil within himself, Jake found new energy in their collaboration. He recognized that the unfolding tension between him and Mia might not only be a catalyst for their art, but a crucial element for his transformation. In this creative partnership, two lives could intertwine into something more robust, something that transcended their individual grief. With each shared moment of vulnerability, Jake felt fortified. The completion of this exhibit was no longer just about presenting art. It was about standing unflinchingly in the face of judgment and vulnerability, about reckoning with the wounded pieces of his past. Yet, with this evolving dynamic simmered a growing fear of what lay ahead. The thought of revealing his innermost thoughts to an audience, the whispers of judgment trailing in the wings, clenched at his gut. And despite Mia's insistence on connection over perfection, doubt clawed at the edges of his newfound determination. Would his narrative pair seamlessly with Mia's? Would it deepen their bond, or expose fractures he could not yet fathom? As dusk swallowed the last rays of sunlight, Jake steeled himself for the exhibition, acknowledging the storm that awaited him. Would he rise to meet the challenge, or would he falter beneath the weight of his own ambition? The moment was near. With determination drumming in his chest, he realized something monumental was about to unfold, a revealing that could either fortify their connection or pull them apart in unexpected ways. Jake awoke the next morning with a heavy heart and a mind racing with possibilities. The impending exhibition loomed like a specter, dark shadows trailing behind his every thought. In the harsh glow of the overhead lights, he sat in the studio, surrounded by the remnants of 1,000 fragmented emotions caught in the act of being translated into art. Each piece whispered of challenges, of unresolved grief, fear, and the nagging suspicion he was not enough. He turned toward the canvas he'd worked on late into the night. The eclectic explosion of color and texture felt alive, crackling with the energy of his fears and desires. But standing before it, Jake felt a suffocating weight pressing down on him. Could he truly step beyond his apprehensions? Could he share the essence of what the piece represented and that of his journey without succumbing to doubt? Mia's words echoed in his mind. Your story holds worth. He grappled with their significance. What did it mean to embrace vulnerability? To be honest in a world that often preferred polished facades over messy truths? Questions coiled around him like a constrictor, squeezing out any remaining resolve. Determined to transform this tension into motivation, Jake decided to channel his internal chaos into action. As he stripped layers from the paint, physically and metaphorically, he resolved to undertake a practice he had inadvertently avoided: unfettered self-expression. For too long, he had relied on the dialogue between himself and Mia to inform their collaboration, to buoy him amidst his ritual of hesitation, but this was his journey as much as it was hers. He selected a clean canvas and positioned it in front of him. After a deep breath, he dipped his brush into a vibrant red, the color reminiscent of unresolved passion. Side to side, he swept the bristles across the surface, a canvas representative of his unsaid thoughts and neglected pains. Strokes transformed into shapes that mirrored tumultuous waves, swirling energies that wanted nothing more than to break free. As he painted, memories of Emily resurfaced, fragments of laughter and tears, the echoes of shared dreams that had been buried under the weight of loss. Each brushstroke became a confrontation not only with his grief, but with the fear of truly belonging once again. Pain and nostalgia, intertwined, morphed into intimacy. He painted not just for himself, but for the future he dared to imagine, the connections he longed to nurture. Time melted away, and soon he found himself paused, staring at a vibrant image that encapsulated his fight. It was chaotic yet harmonious, much like the process of healing itself. But as he stood before this new creation, the familiar doubt crept back, an unwelcome intruder to his moment of triumph. Would it adequately represent his journey? Could mere color convey the depths of his experience? Or would it become yet another diversion from real connection? Mia appeared once more, her footsteps soft against the wooden floor. "You've transformed." Her voice brought him back to the present, and as she examined the canvas, he held his breath, anticipating her reaction. "It's raw," she said, her gaze unwavering. "This is you, Jake. Unpolished but genuine. It connects with something deep inside." The phrase struck him. This vulnerable honesty was the alchemy he needed. "Do you think," he began, cautiously probing, "that our individual truths could come together for the exhibition, or will they clash?" Mia turned, meeting his eyes directly. "It depends on how we choose to frame it. We can't force harmony, but if we embrace our differences, we may just find depth." A fire ignited in Jake's core. Their partnership was not solely about melding styles, it was an exploration of each person's narrative through the lens of mutual understanding. A revelation dawned. Perhaps his disclosure could not only illuminate his path, but also encourage Mia to venture deeper into her own journey. They could craft an experience that reflected the tension and beauty of two distinct journeys converging, rather than a singular anecdote. As excitement began to course through him, Jake felt the impending exhibition transform in his mind from a triumph to a triumph. The timbre of vulnerability now harmonized with his yearning for connection, and with Mia by his side, he could face the audience, fears in hand, ready to embrace whatever came next. But the sky darkened outside, hinting at another storm gathering, one that threatened their collaboration. Would sharing their truths truly knit their experiences together, or unravel threads they hadn't yet seen. Jake turned toward her, the question twisting anxiety into anticipation. Would they emerge fortified, or would the reveal expose deeper cracks than either of them anticipated? The exhibition day arrived with a mixture of palpable excitement and suffocating tension swirling in the air. Jake stood in the gallery's softly lit entrance, the scent of wet paint mingling with the crispness of newly hung artworks. Each piece was a reflection of introspection, growth, and vulnerability. Art made manifest from pain, ambition, and the unyielding power of shared experiences. Yet beneath the surface of this artistic showcasing, uncertainty battled for dominance within him. As guests began filtering in, he felt a surge of pride for the labor of love he and Mia had poured into every stroke and color. Yet the question lingered, burrowing deeper. Would their narratives weave seamlessly into a tapestry that spoke to others? Each anxious glance exchanged with Mia only reminded him of the gravity of their undertaking. Stepping further into the gallery, he caught sight of their collaborative piece, a swirling canvas depicting a tumultuous ocean, with the edges painted in fiery reds and blues. It was chaos and order represented in tandem, a juxtaposition of fear and hope that collaborated boldly against the backdrop of their combined identities. It felt strikingly raw. About 20 minutes into the evening, guests began to engage, both with the artwork and each other. Jake listened and observed, his heart thrumming in empathy with every mixed gasp and whispered commentary, alive to the multitude of emotions circulating in the room. Some approached their piece, entranced, while others meandered toward the individual canvases scattered throughout. Amidst this frenetic energy, Mia squeezed his hand, drawing his attention. Her face radiated authenticity and determination, a reflection of someone who had unearthed her own artistry through their collaboration. "This is it, Dad," she whispered, excitement bubbling in her tone. "No matter what happens, we did this together." That simple expression broke through the fog of his anxiety. The truth of their journey surged forward. It was a manifestation of both their fears and strengths, woven from grief into something beautiful. The room crackled with anticipation as guests challenged themselves to explore these complexities. Just then, a moment arose that crystallized the next chapter of their lives. An acquaintance from the local arts community stepped forward, eyes alight with revelation. "This piece, it's insane. It depicts something profound. The chaos feels both painful and hopeful. I think what you've created here connects deeply with all of us." Jake's heart soared. What he had once perceived as a burden, the need to lay bare his struggles, had sparked recognition in others. This was the power of vulnerability. It mirrored their shared truth rather than served as a mere testimony of grief. As conversations unfolded, Jake felt liberation in sharing the inspirations behind his piece. The struggles surrounding his relationship with Emily, Mia's emerging voice as an artist, and how each breath granted color to their collective experiences. In doing so, he encountered something miraculous: clarity. The evening continued to heighten as Mia took center stage, standing next to their artwork, speaking passionately about her mother's influence, her journey through confusion, and how art resonated within her heart. She spoke with confidence, empowered by the acceptance of vulnerability that Jake had guided her toward. A wave of warmth surged through him as he realized just how far they had journeyed together, from two fractured individuals battling grief to artists standing shoulder to shoulder with a shared purpose. Each word spoken wove the narratives together, celebrating both Emily's unfulfilled dreams and Mia's awakened spirit. In those moments, Jake recognized a transformative resolution within himself. He was no longer defined solely by his corporate success or shrouded by the shadows of his past. He was creating a new identity, surrounded by love, passion, and raw artistry. As the night came to a close, Jake felt the weight of the past lift just enough to let clarity and hope invade. They had accomplished more than he had anticipated. They had opened the door to new beginnings. Grateful for the journey that lay behind him, he turned to Mia. Their embrace whispered the promise of continued adventure. Together, they would navigate whatever storm lay ahead, ready to face it with courage and confidence grounded in shared understanding. Art had become their bridge, linking past wounds to future possibilities. It marked not only a form of expression, but a solid foundation for resilience that neither would abandon. Jake's heart swelled, solid confidence now radiating from within. He had conquered not only his anger and grief, but had proven to himself that he could nurture Mia's aspirations and reflect on his own. With every awestruck look exchanged throughout the gallery, he found recognition, not just as a father or a bereaved husband, but as an artist of life, forever transformed by the vibrant love woven into the canvas of existence. He would continue to create, forever honoring the legacy of those he loved, while carving out a new identity, rich in fulfillment and accomplishment. Life, like art, would always be painted with complex emotions, but Jake was ready to embrace every single hue. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this emotional ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see and feel the power of personal transformation.